Well, hi everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce Quinton Askew. He is the Chief Executive Officer of 211 Maryland.
Mhm.
And so that means that he's connecting 400,000 individuals and families to healthcare services and social services. So
Yes.
that's a great thing you're doing, Quinn.
Yeah, definitely enjoying it. Been on the road for about 2 years now, and so it definitely is a great opportunity to work with folks across the state.
Yeah. So when did you first get involved in bridges, and um, how did that go? How did it expand in your community?
Yeah, and so my first experience with bridges was working with Howard County government. And so we have a board there. It's called the Board to Promote Self-Sufficiency. And so this is a planning coordinating body that was, put on by our county administrator that brings together folks to promote economic stability for our folks in Howard County who are dealing with, to help reduce poverty in Howard County. And so one of their efforts was trying to find ways to better support those who are in need. And we had a county community advocate who was a part of this board, who was a very strong advocate to help folks. And she was aware of bridges in AHA process and getting ahead. And so what she did was one of those meetings, she came to us and said, we need to try this in our community to help folks to be able to help themselves. And so she was able to convene our county government. She was able to get our community resources and services department together, along with some other community advocates. We were able to have you to come down and speak to the group to talk about, the great work that Bridges is doing. But, this community advocate was able to get everyone in the room at the same time, but starting with our government officials. So she really started from, let's get sort of decision makers and folks who are at the top of the table.
So you realize this is completely upside down.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The way things usually happen. Usually it's a nonprofit here or there that tries to get things going in the community, and then they all are, how do we get our government involved?
Right.
So what kind of advice would you give people about how do you attract the folks that are doing governmental services and that run different departments? How would we get them involved?
Yeah, and I think, and you said that this was sort of the backwards process, but I think, because this person was a trusted community advocate who was very, voiceful in the community that our community administrators and government officials knew, she had relationships with those folks. And I would encourage folks, there are folks in every community who have relationships with their county executives. They have relationships with their county council persons, and really, bring that person, to the meeting to say, this is something that we need to do. And they will listen because we listened to her and we trusted her. And so once we heard the information, we trusted her that she was trying to do the right thing. And so based on the information that she provided us and having, you to come down and really talk about what this was, it was really a no-brainer for the county and the department. But I think what was unique about Howard County was that, we said, well, instead of, putting this on a nonprofit and someone else, from a government perspective, we'll try it first to see if it works before we invest it and have you to invest it.
So, so what are a couple of the key things that happened on the journey? And then where is it now?
So I think a couple of key things that happened is that, we were able to, initially start a pilot. And so that pilot was, let's convene and work with our nonprofit partners. And so we really collaborated with our nonprofit partners and folks that were doing the work already and serving those who in that particular population that they know would need the support. And so really convening those folks together in order to provide support for the work. And so we did a first group about 7-8 years ago with about 10 folks. And so there's been over 100 groups that have gone through now. And so the program is thriving. There are over, several hundred graduates that have gone through the program. And currently, the program is being facilitated and taught by all graduates. And so Howard County has really done a great job of implementing and really utilizing the graduates to lead the work.
That's just a great story. Mm-hmm. We see things starting off and taking shape and happening, and then we kind of lose track of what's going on. So this is our conference is a chance for people to kind of catch up and trade stories and learn from each other.
It is, and it's been a wonderful experience to watch the evolution in Howard County. Also, with the Department of Corrections, have done a great job with implementing, getting ahead while getting out. And so I think it's just been a great community collaboration there in the county that's really been thriving.
Is there some kind of a built-in support system for restored citizens or returning citizens? Is there something post getting out that they can do?
Yes. And so one of the most interesting things was the first group that was done for the detention center was done in the community because they held this in the community, one of our nonprofit organizations, to show those folks who were inside that, this is the network that you have when you get out. And so they sort of brought the network, to the folks who were incarcerated. And so once they complete their group, the Getting Ahead folks in Howard County, they have follow-up groups, they have a support group, they have monthly groups that graduates are part of. They do social gatherings together. So it really just sort of keeps that tight connection, of graduates, no matter where you come from or sort of what your background is, you're Getting Ahead graduate. And so they really have an opportunity to stay connected as they're doing the work.
We're now focusing a lot more on policy.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that Getting Ahead graduates have participated in moving policy.
Yes.
So we're still very new at this. And since you're a governmental group that started that way, did it change any of the policies in those governmental groups? And what advice do you have on the policy end?
Yes, it definitely did. And definitely with those policies of ensuring that, folks with lived experiences are at the table and working through the budgeting process to ensure that, organizations that are being funded, whether there's nonprofit organizations or other entities, that we have folks with lived experiences who were at the table to be able to walk us through that process because they have been the ones who've been utilizing those services and they understand, where their gaps are and where the funds need to go. And so I think, that's really the biggest thing is really having folks at the decision-making tables around budgeting and other areas. And definitely would encourage, and it's really just starting with Askew because they all had opinions because, again, they all had that lived experience with utilizing these organizations, better than we had. And I think, that was probably the best thing that could have come out of just really, ensuring folks had a space at the table and be able to really communicate, where they feel like, the most help is needed.
So I'm assuming that some institutional changes were made by that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, plenty. Yes. And they were able, ways to really target organizations that may have been underfunded, that, where there may have been larger organizations who, where normally funding would go because they are sort of always the players that are there. But there are smaller church food banks that are providing support. There are smaller, other nonprofits that are really doing a lot of the work that are school-based that need support where the graduates and other folks understood that, if there was just a little bit more financial support, they could serve a lot more people. And so it's really just getting the understanding of what's going on in the community, because, again, they have the trust factor, they have the know, and really, how can we make sure that these funds are efficiently being provided to where it's needed the most? Wow.
Well, that's really wonderful to hear about. And I know that people will really enjoy hearing what you've said. Mm-hmm. And, so can they knock on your door or, ask for advice, or can we kind of put a limit around that somehow, but kind of help out with that?
No, please do. I definitely would encourage folks to definitely reach out, and definitely in the times that we're in, it's much easier now, because we're all virtually, but I think, it was definitely a great experience and working with Howard County and the county government group and the community there, because, they were really forward thinking when initially starting this Getting Ahead process. And really, as you said, starting from the top to work down. But, it made sense to folks. And there are definitely, creative ways that it can be done. And so I would definitely love to talk to folks more about this.
All right. Thank you. It was really great hearing your story and good to see you again.
Yes, good to see you too. Thank you.
Take care.